Hey guys, Liana here. No gameplay today because it's an image-specific Tatas Tuesday. Of course, we're going to talk about the foaming jugs, Fable, Twitter, National Cleavage Day controversy. And I wanted you guys to be able to see the image. Now, for those of you who weren't following it in real time, you can be forgiven for believing that that Lionhead, the developer of Fable, only put up the image you're seeing here. They didn't, actually. This is just the one that seemed to get everybody really mad. And I want to show you the other one so that I'm streaming on my PS4 because right now my PC won't actually stream video. So I want you guys to see this. So here we go. These were actually the two images that the Fable developers put up, Lionhead Studios. You can see them right here. But if you can see this, the second image is of a man with his backside. It's a very nice backside, but unnaturally exposed. On the left, you have a woman wearing what is sort of standard Germanic Oktoberfest-style barmaid garb, and she happens to just be well endowed. Now, look at the headline. Lionhead's tasteless tweets are just the latest examples of gaming's boys-only culture. What does a man with no pants have to do with boys-only culture? And the internet determined that a fully clothed woman who happened to be well endowed and showing cleavage, there's no nipple there, was more offensive than a man with no pants. And they claim to do this in the name of women. Now, do I have to tell you what's wrong with this? Like, seriously. Do I really have to say it? But I guess I do. Because this is getting silly. Because if you go to, major game coverage, you only get the one image. This GameSpot image does not have the second tweet anywhere in the article. Nowhere. Well, these are the comments. Don't read the comments. Oh, God. Nothing. Nowhere in the article is that second tweet. So let's face it. The problem was they put up an image of a well-endowed woman. And people are trained, and I really believe this is training. People are now trained in certain social groups to be offended when you put up an image of a well-endowed woman. And this is supposed to be in support of women. Now, I do a lot of conventions. And I do a lot of talking to, geeks, and especially female geeks. And let me tell you something, guys. In these conventions, and I'm talking all over Canada and the US, you're going to find more women who find this image attainable than, a B-cup, boyish, skinny, tall representation of women that, is a more, quote, athletic body type, and so the gaming liberal intelligentsia, oops, what did I do? The gaming liberal intelligentsia has determined is acceptable. It's acceptable to show a woman as long as she doesn't have large boobies. And I'm just telling you guys, there's a lot of women who really like the whole corseted look to push them up because they're not super skinny and they're not, they don't have a tiny little waist and they don't have long, slender legs, but they can smack on a corset, push up the girls, and feel attractive. And really, what's wrong with that? I mean, some people can say, oh, it's called the foaming jugs, it's sexist. No, it's a pun. It's a pun. It's not, it's sex aware. But what is objectifying about this image. You can see her face, and the interesting thing is, some of the games press that covered this article actually cropped out the woman's face. You see that? They crop out her face to make the image seem more objectifying. This is an objectifying image. This is. You cut off her face, okay? They show it below here, but their header cuts off her face. And, you know, this is an article that's supposed to be positive, defending the thing. Dude, you're not helping. You're not helping when you do that. Well, at least he has the second tweet. But, dude, do not do this, especially if you're trying to support the whole thing. Lionhead didn't display the image in that way. They did this. You know, they did this. And it's, you know, what I do give this image credit for is, if you look, the cleavage is not symmetrical. It actually sits more like a realistic woman would, which tells me that they got it off a reference somewhere. Likely porn. And artists use porn as references just because there's no clothes getting in the way of the anatomy. No, for real. But it's actually not like flawlessly 2 round cantaloupes in her chest. So the artist used a photo reference on this, most likely, or he's just studied, or she has studied a lot of breasts. A lot of breasts. And that's okay, because professional reasons only. But if you see, it's actually depicted more like a real woman's body. And, you know, we could probably find the photo reference they use for this just on those eyebrows. Those aren't medieval eyebrows. So some sleuthing could probably find the photo reference that this was used for. But this is just concept art, right? It was a minor part of the game. But this, that nobody got as upset about, this is actually unnatural. Like, what is this? This isn't male gaze. This isn't a boys' club. Well, male gaze, people claim, is heterosexual male gaze. This ain't, you know, this is either for women or for gay men, right? This isn't that. I mean, he's actually missing an article of clothing. She's not. But this is the image that the internet freaked out about. And that tells me something. That tells me that there actually is sexism in gaming. But it's not coming from the sources everybody thinks. It's coming from the people claiming to defend women. And some women themselves. And yes, women can be sexist. Women can be misogynist. Yes, you can. And there's a lot of people that believe that, you know, sexism doesn't exist. I'm going to go back to the GameSpot article, because the other thing that's important about this whole issue is that this image didn't come out of nowhere. They didn't create it for National Cleavage Day, okay? And I don't even know what National Cleavage Day is. Nobody sent me money. You know, I didn't get anything free, so I don't give a crap about a hashtag, okay? But if you go to the Foaming Jugs entry on the Fable wiki, what happened? Why are you messing with me? Why are you afraid of boobs, PlayStation? Don't be afraid of boobs. Okay. So, oh, I hit the wrong button. It was my thumb that's afraid of boobs. Okay, so it's actually a location in Fable 2. Fable 2 came out years ago. So why are we talking about this now? I mean, I think hopefully you can understand. I mean, there's another tavern called the Bloody Stump. Why aren't we? Let's look at the Fable 2 property listing on the wiki to see if this is uniquely the Foaming Jugs. Okay, the Foaming Jugs has its own entry. That's interesting. So probably okay. So Bower Lake, not Whole Island property. Oh, come on, give us. Okay, here we go. The Beating Heart, the Beautification Factory, Bit of Skirt, okay. Blood from a Stone, that's a British term, by the way. So, the Boudoir. And, scrolling. So, the Cow and Corset, okay. The Dark Mark, okay. Fiction Burns, Fiendish Fashions, The Final Lap House, Har har. There's the foaming jugs right there. The furniture graveyard. The helping hand. Well, that could be a masturbation reference. Right? Right? Like, if we're gonna overreact. The leper's arms. Oh no, bigotry against lepers. Monster Manor. I don't even know half of these places. But as you can see, there's a potion in motion. Right, Pants. There's a place just called Pants. What's a place called Pants? It's a clothing store. Male clothing store. Okay. So, pants in a British context is underpants. My sister found that out the hard way when she taught dance to kids in England. She kept referencing pants and they kept laughing at her. So, as you can see, there's sort of puns all through this game. Right? And I played Fable 2. I quite enjoyed Fable 2. None of this at all bothered me, because in the context of the game and the sort of, whimsical medievalist that, there we go, furry art, fur art, we have confirmed fur, look at that, and that's some cleavage too, right there. Looks a bit like my dog Loki, but he doesn't have cleavage. But when people go after these things, and yes, if people don't know Fable and all this stuff, then, they can't know the context and all this stuff. And yes, you do have to be careful what you put on Twitter. But it being, look at this thing, this isn't the article, but another one said that the fans of the game freaked out. And look at this quote, okay? It's from Catherine Clark, who is, she's a Massachusetts state representative. So a Massachusetts state representative is now speaking for all women in gaming, okay? Prioritize the investigation and prosecution, I almost said prostitution, whoops, of cyber abuse crimes that specifically target women. Why aren't we cracking down on cyber crimes, period? I don't know, people are like, that's when people start freaking out. But this is an American law. And America, they have that enshrined in their whole thing. All men are created equal, which has been extrapolated to mean all people are created equal. And so why shouldn't there just be more investigation and prosecution of cyber abuse crimes? Because you know what? We do need that. Creating something that has to do with women, that's a dumb idea. That's politics. That if you know anything about how government funding works, you want to cast the widest blinking net possible when you're creating programs, because it's a numbers game. You want to show as many people as possible are affected. So specifically targeting women with cyber crimes, looking into that, prioritizing this investigation, that's going to be one of the first things that gets cut when money gets tight. Because it affects less people than programs that benefit both genders. It has nothing to do with sexism and everything to do with a numbers game. So if Catherine Clark wanted to be smart, it would just be investigation and prosecution of cyber abuse. Because you know what? The most common victims of violence are still men. And yes, that violence is perpetrated by other men. But the victims are still overwhelmingly male. There's just no sexualization to the violence. It's a different thing. But still, raw numbers, we can't ignore these statistics. But she says, we must not allow the internet to be closed to female voices, and intensifying the enforcement of existing laws is an important first step to keeping the internet open to anyone. What does this have to do with a lady with boobs? What does this have to do? How does this image harm anyone? Because, guys, these images don't come out of nowhere. They're based on historical reference things. They're based on the way medieval garb, you know, accentuated hyper femininity. That was the fashion back then. That was the fashion. They like to have the big butts. That's why they have the full skirts. And they like to have the big boobs. This is a beauty aesthetic. And do you notice the quote here? Diversity and inclusion are values we uphold here. We'll enforce these values with our team. That's from the developer. It's in this story somewhere. There. No, there it is. Where the heck is... Oh, there it is. They explained, we apologize for the imagery we shared earlier. Diversity, inclusion are values we uphold here. We'll reinforce these values with our team. Well, the reality is that, you know, if this really was an inclusivity exercise, they would have been bombarded with the internet with black lady cleavage and, you know, Italian lady cleavage and Indian lady cleavage and Latina cleavage and just, it was National Cleavage Day. Okay? There is nothing not inclusive about this image. Women look like this. Some women look like this. I'm not quite this big, but I have met women who are. And we have no idea what she looks like without her corset on. She could have a 36-inch waist for all we know, uncorseted. I know women who have 36-inch waists and they corset down to like a 30. So, you know, I'm tired of people equating misogyny and, yes, freaking out over this image where she's not showing any nipples. She's holding beer steins. She's not licking her lips or leering at the camera. Her face is neutral. She's not bending over in an awkward pose. She has a face. It's an image of a full person. Complaining about this image is a fear and hatred of women who look like this. And guess what we call a fear and hatred of women or subgroup of women? That is called misogyny. And bowing to that is not inclusivity, it's fear. And here's the thing about Lionhead Studio. Lionhead Studio has some things that they do not do very well. For instance, promising features in their games that they don't end up delivering on. However, they also do some things very, very right. And inclusivity, especially female body type inclusivity, is something that they were way ahead of the curve on. And they did it just because I talked to one of the writers of Fable 2, and he said it was very important to have Sister Hannah be, you know, a big, beautiful woman. And they did that because they thought it was right, not because anybody was pressuring them to do it back when Fable 2 came out. And so instead of rewarding a studio that was on the vanguard of the health at any size movement, because if you don't know the character Sister Hannah, she's like the tank character. She's the strong, it would be the strong man. Like, she's a fighter class character and she lifts all the heavy stuff. So she's Zuftig, you know, she's bigger. She looks like power lifters look, which means she's not skinny. And I thought that was just awesome to come across that in a game back in the day, that was, you know, important. And they had, you know, gay and lesbian relationships ahead of the curve. They had, you know, I don't remember what their racial diversity was, but I'm just trying to see if they'll give me, oh, there we go, characters. I don't remember what it was, but that's a tricky one because it's medieval England and, well, vaguely based on medieval England, and, you know, some people say, well, there weren't that many black people in medieval England. Yeah, but why don't they have a good, see, the hero of strength, that's her, Sister Hannah. Why don't they have a better picture of her? Come on, Fable Wiki. But she's a bigger girl. And look, they had a woman as the hero of strength in Fable 2. Okay? That's, that's making a statement right there. So why the heck are we complaining about Lionhead in terms of diversity? They're okay. Everybody can do better, but they're okay. And then I'm pretty sure Teresa was blind as well. So you had disabled people as well in Fable 2. And this is a while ago, right? Like Fable 2 came out quite some time ago. We've had plenty of garbage games since then from the Fable team. But and I enjoyed Fable 2. Fable 2 was the last Fable game I actually, played all the way through. And I enjoyed Fable 2. But this is not a company we have to worry about. They're not, there's no, there's no sexual violence in Fable 2. There's no, one could say there's problematic content, but it mainly comes, this is a game, to put it in perspective, that you can set an option in the game where townspeople can call you arseface and chicken chaser, okay? It's that kind of tone. And 2008 is when Fable 2 came out. So they were doing this 7 freaking years ago. And people are attacking them on Twitter for an image from 2008. Okay? 2008. We are freaking out about an image from 2008. And then, of course, poor Lionhead, they get all the people mad at them for taking the image down. I understand why they took the image down, guys. I get it. No point in getting mad at Lionhead. They did what they had to do. People are mad at them for the diversity inclusion comment, and I understand why, but that's what they have to say. That's the modern "please sir, can I have another" of hazing online. It's not, they're probably cursing behind the scenes, but there's certain things you do have to say to appease the hordes online. And this is why we need to deal with these issues and hit them head on and talk. Why are you not letting me? Son of a bitch. This is why we need to talk about what complaints about images like this actually do. Because, I'm sorry, there's nothing wrong with this photo. Is it sexy? Is it sexually evocative? Is it cheeky? Yes. But making a poor taste argument over a pun is a little... You have to defend that. And the problem is we're so afraid, developers are so afraid, because developers are still overwhelmingly male, they're so afraid of getting called sexist, that they're actually letting sexism like this, attacks on a certain type of woman perpetuate, because they're afraid of getting called sexist. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry. Blah. We have to stop this. We have to stop these knee-jerk reactions, and I'll tell you why. Thanks, Loki. Thanks for your contribution. I'll tell you why. Here's a story from my younger years. I started cosplaying before I knew what it was. I made a Catwoman from Batman Returns, the movie, when I was 16 years old. And I was not in a very healthy place back then. And, so I was a lot thinner than I am now, and people are like, you must have been really sickly. Yes, I was. Yes, I was. But that was sort of my moment of, I don't want to be a good girl anymore. Fast forward years from then, and you got to understand that when I grew up, it was the 1990s, and the ideal body type in the media that back then was a waif. and it was what they called Kate Moss heroin chic. Calvin Klein was on the vanguard of putting sickly looking women, and not just thin. I'm not thin shaming here. They were actually sickly looking. They deliberately put bags under their eyes and all this stuff. I don't know why, but that was the trend back then. And here I am, you know, I was a C cup in the 6th grade, and that really sets you apart, because I mean, some girls hadn't even hit puberty, and I was well past a training bra into bras. You feel a lot of shame about that. 1, because you're different. 2, because people don't know what to do about it, make fun of you. And 3, because you have no examples of curvy women. So what do you feel and what do you get called? You get called fat. And you feel fat because you're bigger than other people, okay? And when I was in my late teens, I discovered Power Girl, who, you know, for those of you who don't know, looks kind of like this with blonde hair. And Power Girl made me realize, you know, there were heroic women, not slutty women, not women of ill repute, not fat women, you know, not prostitutes. And I'm good with prostitutes, and that's partially because of my own journey. But, you know, Power Girl was a hero who was dynamic and strong and did things that didn't involve her boobs. Her boobs were sort of an artist joke that stuck. Wally Wood drew her boobs increasingly bigger, waiting to get caught. But it had this unanticipated effect that women who are on the larger side naturally, you know, felt represented. We felt represented by Power Girl. And the wonderful thing, especially on the Justice Society run that Jeff Johns did, is that they didn't play on her boobs too much. There were occasional jokes about it, but she had things she did, and she had things she was interested beyond having boobs. And that was wonderful. And we're coming out of that now into, once again, an attack on breasts. And we gotta be careful about that, because I know there are other women out there. And I know there are other women who come up and talk to me and thank me for doing, you know, sexy photo shoots when I'm not a skinny thing. Because, I mean, let's face it, up until fairly recently, and up until, you know, people like, oh, what's her blinking name? The actress from Mad Men, and, you know, Kim Kardashian, love her or hate her, and things like that, women that were considered attractive were, you know, underweight with fake parts stuck on. And that's not healthy. And I think that we shouldn't be shaming any body or any size that is natural, and people aren't suffering health problems because of it. And that cleavage detail that I showed you guys is what tells me that that's what this is. This is just a woman who happens to be well endowed, right? They're not completely symmetrical. They've shaded. That is false shading. If you see that in an image, it's either makeup, I know because I put that makeup on, or it's actually an implant lip. And what does it say that we're so used to seeing implants that women with natural breasts are now drawing on lines on themselves? It's just makeup with a makeup brush on the contour, because people now expect to see that shadow, which doesn't actually exist in natural breast tissue. But the other thing, the way they push together, implants will not push together if they're that big, because they sit there, they don't move like natural breast tissue. So in order to get cleavage, you actually, you know, you have to push implants a lot harder together, and they have to have been in a woman's body for a while. Now, granted, if she's got more natural body fat, if she started off bigger as is and just boosted with an implant, well, then you get some movement because there was already something to move, right? But if somebody went from flat as a board to a D cup, no, you're not going to get cleavage. You cannot push those things together. And implants are getting better, but they still don't move like natural breasts, okay? And I'm not shaming implants. It's just fact, okay? It's just fact. But, you know, the fact that they're not sitting symmetrically and they're not... Somebody actually bothered to look at anatomy on this one. And yeah, they're probably exaggerated, probably. But it's exaggerated and objectified aren't the same thing. And sexy and sexist aren't the same thing. And the relationship we have regarding sex right now is becoming a form of social anorexia. What? Hear me out. The thing that makes anorexia notoriously difficult to treat is that you need to eat to live. It's not like other compulsive or addictive disorders in that, and yes, when you're treated for anorexia, you tend to end up in an addiction and mental health facility. But, you know, unlike alcohol or drugs where you can just stop, you stop drinking alcohol completely. You stop doing drugs completely. With food, you have to moderate. And compulsive eating, you know, emotional eating is on one side of the scale. Anorexia and bulimia are on the other side of the scale. We're becoming like that with images of women's bodies. Okay, that we have no sense of moderation. We freak out when someone's anorexic, but we freak out when anybody's above a B cup too. That's not healthy. Some women do look like this. And there's actresses like Christina Ricci who flat out said she had a breast reduction to get better parts because there's a stigma against women with large breasts. Do you guys know what a breast reduction surgery involves? I'm going to take you through it. If you're squeamish at all, stop listening right now. Because here's what happens in a breast reduction surgery, because a doctor recommended this to me once. It would be covered by OHIP, he said. That's Ontario's healthcare plan. Sorry, it was a she. It was a she. Because, you know, I'm large. I had a doctor recommend a surgery to me, a completely unnecessary surgery. The problem was fixed with better bras that fit properly. But here's what a breast reduction surgery does. They cut off the nipple completely. They make an incision on the underside of the breast, so straight up from where the nipple was to your rib cage. They cut underneath the breast, where, you know, the underwire of the bra would sit. Close up, like reduce the breast tissue, and then there's, you know, they're removing fatty tissue as well. And then they sew it back up and put your nipple back on. So you have a scar all around your nipple, down the underside of your breast in the middle, and then all underneath the breast as well. The recovery time is significant. It's not something a woman should do unless there is no other alternative medically. It is major surgery. So people should not be pressured to have this surgery because of social stigma. It's surgery. We should learn to love our bodies, not change it surgically to fit in better. That's ridiculous. But here's the reality of having abnormally large breasts. I can't shop at Victoria's Secret. Okay? Most of the bra chains, the bra boutiques you see online don't cater above a double D. And a lot of women in North America are wearing the wrong size bra. This isn't as big an issue in England where they're a bit more aware of proper sizing. But I used to get bras from England, but the import taxes are insane from Britain to Canada, which is weird because we're both part of the Commonwealth. But finally, Change Lingerie opened up in Canada, and oh my God, it's a godsend. Because I can get reasonably priced bras in my size. If anybody's interested about the size of my bra, I am a 30I. Yes, that is I. If you're wondering what that means, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. You know, that's 9 letters. That means it's 9 inches of boob. My boobs weigh 12 pounds, in case anybody's wondering. Why do I know that? Don't ask. So, women like me do exist, and I think it's exceptionally important that we be represented in media, that we count, that we're seen as whole people, and not shorthands for male domination or sexism or objectifying women or closing off women's voices. I have a voice. I have a voice, and developers like Lionhead Studios encouraged me to find my voice and express my voice because they included me. And I'm tired of these attacks because I'm having to move away from my favorite developers because they are bending to this rabid social pressure on the internet. And we don't know how much of this stuff is jealousy, right? Because there's this idea that bigger is better when it comes to boobs. I'm telling you, it's not true. You know, if you ask people, what's the ideal bra size? They're not going to say 30I. They're going to say 36C. So guess what? Anybody on the low end or anybody in the high end, it sucks for both of us, right? You know, I can't take attractive pictures without people telling me I'm using my body to get ahead. Women who are built differently than me don't get that same attitude because the idea isn't, well, of course you do that, you look slutty. This is the problem, and this is the patriarchy we are perpetuating by attacking images like this one from Lionhead. There's nothing wrong with this image. If you read Shakespeare, if you read the Canterbury Tales, if you read great works of English literature, don't argue historic patriarchy on me, hear me fucking out. There are references to sexuality and sexiness that aren't necessarily sexist. They are all through the great works of literature. And you step outside English literature, you get into non-English stuff, especially from, you know, non-romantic languages, non-European countries, you know, African stories, African myth, it's full of sex. It's full of sex. If you look at the art, it's full of boobs. And you're telling me that this image is a problem. No. The fact that we get bent out of shape over nothing images like this is the problem. We are disordered on this issue collectively. Gaming has a boob problem. And we need to suck it up, put our own insecurities aside, show empathy. Because I'm not talking about myself. I don't care. You know, thank God I am finally being respected for my ideas. Finally. By some. Other people still think I'm the scourge of the fucking earth. And it's the same people who are complaining about these images, by the way. But, you know, there are other women out there who are still struggling with body positivity and still trying to find their place and still trying to figure out what their bodies mean and what it means about them and how they feel about it. And they're trying to learn to love themselves. And then things like this happen. It doesn't help. You know, if you saw the comments about this thing, it's like, are you serious? Like, really? That's disgusting. And all these things. They don't attempt to explain why it's a problem. It was purely, oh, that's gross. Thanks so much, people, for saying my body is gross, because that's the message you're sending. You're the fucking sexists, not Lionhead Studios. You have issues with secondary sex characteristics portrayed proudly on a woman. And I don't care if you're a man or a woman, that is just the reality you have to wake up to. You are being competitive. And you insisting these images are somehow a problem. We're not born clothed, people. We're not born clothed. So anything we put on our bodies, you know, after we shower, if, you know, assuming we still shower naked, maybe some people don't. We're going back to that Puritan, you know, oppressive thing where women were not allowed to be naked ever. Do you know what that did to people? Do you know what that does? Do you know what it does to be afraid of a woman's naked body? It means that people can fake nudes of someone to try to undermine them. It means that if people's intimate photos get out, it's more embarrassing for a woman than it is for a man long term. There's a social judgment on a woman who takes pictures in an intimate setting and sends them to her partner. What the hell? Why are we so dysfunctional over sex? Because we're not realizing what we're doing. We go, ew, that's disgusting. Grow up. Grow up. I'm tired of this, and I'm tired of this happening over and over and over again. So that was a bit long, but I want people to see why, you know, this issue matters, and why, you know, I keep on it, and why I'm pushing. And it's not for me. It's for other women who don't have fast metabolisms, but they happen to have big, beautiful breasts. And they should matter too. So let's cut the crap, please.